Okay, time for a new video, and whether you are somebody new to my channel or you are returning to my channel to watch this video, it's greatly appreciated. As always, I'm filming this in one go, so I apologise in advance if I stumble over my words going forwards, and indeed if the quality of this video is fairly poor as well. If there's any lag, anything like that at all, sadly it can't be helped, and hopefully it's not too much of an issue for you. This is yet another Eurovision Song Contest related video here on my channel, and it is time to talk about semi-final 2 of Eurovision 2020, which I know and we all know has been cancelled, but would have been taking place in about 2 weeks' time at the Ahoy in Rotterdam in the Netherlands. 18 nations would have participated, and they all would have voted alongside 3 of the automatic qualifiers, France, Spain and the UK. In my previous video I spoke about semi-final 1, made my predictions, discussed the songs. Feel free to watch that if you so wish. It was about half an hour long, and I'm just going to do the same for semi-final 2. How I made this prediction is fairly simple. I gave each act, each country, each song a mark out of 100 in various categories, including jury prediction. This is a very loose term, but I essentially took into consideration whether the juries would favour a certain genre over another based on previous voting patterns, and also, you know, the countries that are in this semi-final, would one jury obviously give a particular other country points because they're geographical neighbours, for example. Things like that, little things. Also the performance, if we did have a live performance, I've took that into consideration, and how the staging might have been in Rotterdam, the backdrop, any props, whether it would be very flamboyant or not, you know, all of those things as well. The vocals, studio and live versions, if there has been indeed a live version. The overall qualification record of that particular country, taking into consideration the other countries in that semi-final who could potentially vote for them, Public fan response, that's what everybody was saying on social media, YouTube likes, etc. And also the odds at the time of the contest's cancellation. I've then worked out the average, but I've also looked at other lists that I have on my computer where I've ranked the songs, how the jury would have voted, how the public would have voted, worked out the average. Altogether I have 10 qualifiers. So long story short, I'm just going to get straight into this. As always, let me know your thoughts. Something I didn't mention in my previous video is that on the days of what would have been this year's semi-finals, there are going to be videos uploaded onto the official Eurovision YouTube channel. I don't know exactly what it's going to be like. I imagine it will just be one song after another in what would have been the actual running order. So this is in no particular order. I'm not going to go through the songs one by one because we don't know the actual running order just yet, but I'll be talking about that when we know it. Anyway, enough rambling, dear oh dear. Let's just get straight down to the main thrust of this video. I'm going to mention a few countries that I think would not have qualified from the second semi-final, which was to be staged on Thursday the 14th of May. For me, personally, and I think a lot of other Eurovision fans would agree with me here, the weaker semi-final, but perhaps the harder one to predict, because there's a lot of borderline qualifiers as well. So anyway, the first country that I think would not have qualified from semi-final 2 is Estonia. This is What Love Is by Uku Saviste. A little bit of a surprising winner of this year's Eesti Laul, because Jaagup Twisk was a big fan favourite with Beautiful Lie, and there were many alright, credible entries in the Estonian selection this year. So for them to plump for this, rather disappointing, although I do believe he was the bookmaker's favourite all the way through, so maybe not too much of a surprise in the end. He's a good singer, and I believe he co-wrote this song, but it's just disappointing. It falls flat. I think Estonia are slowly going backwards at Eurovision, it has to be said. They really, I mean, La Forza a few years ago was great, but I think in terms of really challenging for a high finish consistently, as they used to do in the 90s, for example, those days are long gone. Although Estonia has a very good music scene, so maybe Kerli will be available next year, who knows. Anyway, this song, it's fine. The music video's set in a warehouse. It's all very simple. It's quite cheesy. He's got a pretty powerful voice. I'm sure he would have performed very well in Rotterdam. Would the staging have been that interesting? Probably not. The juries may have given this some love. The public, I highly doubt it. And for me, Estonia would not have been a qualifier from the second semi-final this year had it been going ahead. Another country that I think would not have qualified is Moldova. This is Filip Kirkorov getting involved again, and whenever he is involved in the Moldovan selection, his entry is bound to come out on top. This is a returning artist, or what would have been a returning artist, Natalia Gordienko, with Prison. And she was part of a trio, of course, in 2006, 14 years ago. One of Moldova's weakest ever entries, it's fair to say. Maybe one of the weakest we've had this century so far. But anyway, Prison is okay. Takes a while to get going. I thought the live performance was really quite plain and unmemorable. They might have switched it up in Rotterdam. Something that Moldova has done very well in the past, let's not forget My Lucky Day 2 years ago, is intriguing, engaging staging. I just don't think that would have happened with this particular song. It's just very forgettable. You know, I barely remember it right now as I'm talking about it to you. So I don't think Moldova would have made the cut this year. It's worth saying that last year in Tel Aviv, Moldova were unfancied, but weren't terribly far away from qualifying, and they had that sand artist, so you know that was something that made the song a little bit more interesting, because if they hadn't had that, it would have just fallen flat on its face. So I don't know what they would have done this year at all. Natalia's not a bad singer, decent stage presence. This is a considerably more mature entry than the one that she was a part of in Athens 2006. It just wouldn't have made it. Little fan support, not a qualifier. Moving on, another country that I don't think would have qualified is Finland. A real shame this. Axel with Looking Back. Last year we had Look Away. This year Looking Back. Maybe next year for Finland it'll be Looking Ahead. Who knows? That would be quite interesting. But anyway, Axel, not a bad singer. There he was on stage in his sort of greyish outfit. Little movement. Mainly spent the performance with his eyes closed. The staging just was non-existent, really, and he was not the favourite to win. Cicciolina by Erika Wickman was. And that song, had Eurovision been going ahead, had Finland chosen it, would have done very well, I'm sure. It would have been one of Finland's best results this century so far. As such, looking back, I don't think would have qualified. The juries, I think, would have appreciated this enough to maybe put it in their top 10. But the public, no, not at all. It's really quite static and bland and safe. You know, Cicciolina was a bit risky, but it was up-tempo, and everybody was getting on board with it. You know, over 1 million views for that song before it had even been performed at UMK, which is the Finnish national selection. Looking Back is fine, I really don't mind it. It gets a bit repetitive towards the end. Axel's a fine singer. I don't think he'll be back next year, you never know. Would Finland have qualified? I doubt it. I really doubt it, unfortunately. It's as simple as that. Another country that I think would have missed out is San Marino. This is Freaky, Freaky, Freaky by Senate. Another returning artist. She represented San Marino in 2011. This, a very different song, up-tempo, sort of disco pop. The music video, very vibrant, colourful, a little bit chaotic, but I suppose it worked. The live performance would also have probably been a little bit all over the place. Who really would have voted for this? Nobody, in my opinion. Very, very few people. Maybe a point here, a point there. Were Italy going to vote in this semi-final? No, so that's another couple of points that San Marino would have missed out on. This would have struggled. However, I am a little bit aware, it's fair to say, of the fact that Serhat finished in the top 10 in the public vote in the grand final with Say Na Na Na. So anything's possible. But this song, while it's fine and fun, it's just not that great, is it really? I mean, it's a breath of fresh air. It would have stood out amongst the field. I mean, if this had gone straight after Estonia, Estonia would have been, you know, good night Vienna, if you see what I mean. But yeah, the San Marino entry, let's go with that anyway. It's fine, as I've just said, but just lacking support. And San Marino would have really struggled this year. I feel pretty confident about that. Another country that I think would have missed out, maybe a little controversial for some, Czech Republic. Some people are adamant that this would have gone through. Instead of whom? I don't know. Czech Republic for me, not a qualifier this year. I've already said in a previous video, I was so shocked and disappointed that K Mama by Benny Christo won the Czech national final. The strongest batch of songs the Czechs have ever had, and that's the song they chose. Disappointing. But then when I saw his social media following, I sort of understood it. This song, fairly contemporary, quite catchy. It's got a good beat, a good rhythm, but it's still quite unremarkable to me. It feels a little bit uninspired. It doesn't even feel that original to me, which is maybe a bit of a strange thing to say. I think Benny's an alright singer. I did see his live performance of this song at the Ukrainian national final, was it, a couple of months ago? It wasn't bad, but I've never been able to get into this song. They revamped it, it was dreadful. They sort of changed it back a little bit, it was slightly better. But there's just something about this song I've never been able to connect with. It's just not the sort of music that I'd listen to in my own time. I don't think this would have got enough points to go through. I really don't. The public might have put it in their top 10, but given the strength of several of the other borderline qualifiers, the Czechs might have just missed out. And next year, I am hoping for another strong batch of songs in contention for the Czech Republic, and hopefully they'll send something that is definitely going to get them into the final. Anyway, dear me, lots of rambling. Let's talk about some of the countries that would have qualified. Denmark would have gone through, of course. Ben and Tan with Yes. I think they were both on the Danish version of the X Factor last year, maybe. They won Dansk Melodi Grand Prix in front of no fans in Copenhagen because of that pesky virus. But anyway, this song, it's uplifting, it's charming. You've got the guy standing there playing the guitar. She's wearing a white outfit. There's not a whole lot of chemistry between the two of them, in my opinion. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of that at Eurovision, but of course we'll never know. I thought this was a really tremendous performance on the whole, though, a very catchy song. Jimmy Jansson, Swedish songwriter and musician, co-writing this one. Really good, really fun. Denmark sent a song that was charming last year, and it did better than people expected. This year probably would have been more of the same. Let me know, if not better, let me know your thoughts on that. I think it's a terrific little song. Also going through, Greece. This is Supergirl by Stefania, who is half Dutch, full Dutch, not quite sure. Anyway, she was part of Kisses, who represented the Netherlands in Junior Eurovision a couple of years ago with Kisses and Dancing. Really good song there. This song, pop, clearly aimed, I would say, at a young audience. It does feel a little bit like a Junior Eurovision entry, but I suppose it's also fairly slick and well produced. Stefania is only about 17. I think she would have performed this quite well. The staging may have been a little bit all over the place, maybe a bit too over the top. Maybe they would have put too much emphasis onto the staging, whereas they really should have been focusing on vocals first. I don't really know at all, but this song, it's not bad. I think it would have gone through with relative ease. What else is there to say about it? Greece would have been in the final. If Greece had been in semi-final 1, might have been a different story. You never know. But anyway, another country that would have qualified is Bulgaria. This was the favourite to win the contest at the time of Eurovision's 2020's cancellation. This is Victoria with Tears Getting Sober. Yes, it is a bit like Billie Eilish, but no bad thing. I said this about the Romanian song yesterday. It really isn't a bad thing at all. Yeah, Victoria's a really good singer. She has performed this live. I think it was a more stripped back version, even more stripped back than the actual studio cut. Music video's a bit dull. She's just sitting on a bench looking quite sad for 3 minutes next to a tree. I listened to this song very recently. It's really not that bad. I still don't get how it was the favourite to win. It's a very pretty, beautiful song with a lovely melody, builds up quite nicely. It's very dreamlike. I think that's the best way to describe it. Would it have made much of an impact? I don't know. Had it qualified, which it would have done, let's be honest, and been drawn into the first half of the grand final, I think a few people would have doubted its chances. Who knows? Anyway, this would have sailed through. Bulgaria seem to know what they're doing at Eurovision now, and surely their first win isn't too long away. Victoria will be back next year, I think. Not entirely sure. Will she have as good a song? Will it be a ballad again? I have no idea. Anyway, Iceland would have gone through. Of course, this won the Euro jury vote that there was yesterday. Spoiler alert. Sorry if I've ruined it for you, but yes, Iceland did come out on top. This is Think About Things by Dalton and Gagna Magnith. and this was quite the performance at the Icelandic national selection. All wearing green outfits with pixelated faces on their tops, his wife on stage as well, and just these really interesting dance moves. You know, it was awkward. There was an awkwardness about it which made it likeable. And I think a lot of people really responded to it because of the choreography. You take that choreography away, would people be loving it as much? I don't know. Considering that Douthie was involved in the Icelandic national selection a few years ago, nobody seemed to rave about his song then. This one, Think About Things, isn't massively different in my opinion, but everybody was just loving it. It went viral, celebrities were talking about it as if they knew what they were on about. And this would have been a serious contender to win this year's contest. Iceland's never won, and who knows if they'll have a song this capable of winning Eurovision again for many years. I don't know. I like it more than I did, it's fair to say. Oculus Video Ray was right there, but I honestly don't think that would have done terribly well at Eurovision, maybe. This, on the other hand, had an energy to it, a likability factor, and it was just going to be a lot of fun. I think the performance would have been almost identical to how it was at the Icelandic selection. Anyway, moving on, because I'm starting to ramble, dearie me. I think Austria would have qualified, you know. Yes, I know some of you might disagree with me on that, but this is Vincent Bueno with Alive. Very much in the mould of Justin Timberlake, maybe even Justin Bieber. It is a sort of funky dance pop song. Music video's alright. He is part Filipino. Not a bad singer from what I've seen of him and heard of him. Yes, maybe this is a little bit bland and unoriginal and maybe even a bit of a rip-off, some people would say, of the sort of music that Justin Timberlake's released in the past. But is that a bad thing? I don't know. I think if it had qualified, it would have struggled in the final. Austria does tend to flit between decent results and rather disappointing outcomes. For me, this is bang average. But I do think it would have gone through. The juries in particular might have just resonated with this, if that's the right term to use. They would have connected with it, certainly. More so than the public, perhaps. Another country that would have qualified is Switzerland. Of course this would have gone through. Répondez-moi, Answer Me by John's Tears. Those high notes, dear me, absolutely sensational. Monochrome music video, very artistic. And John himself, very likeable, really fantastic live singer. He would have nailed it. We know he would have nailed it. This would have been a standout performance at this year's contest. Would have cruised through. Switzerland have turned things around after years of mediocrity. Last year we saw it, and that was a very good song last year. Up-tempo, lots of red. I'm sure we all recall She Got Me. This year, something completely different. Just as good, if not better. Switzerland can do both, it seems, and about time too. Their third win, well, who knows, maybe it's going to come sooner than we thought, because if you had told me a few years ago that Switzerland were going to be contenders to win 2 years in a row, I would have laughed in your face, but that's exactly what's happened. A real shame that we won't get to hear/see Répondez-moi on that Rotterdam stage, but he'll be back next year. I have high hopes that he'll have something just as excellent, if not even stronger. Would have gone through without breaking a sweat. Let's go back to a country that I think would not have qualified, Portugal. This is Medo de Sentir, which I believe means afraid to feel or scared to feel, by Elisa. This, for me, is quite possibly the most forgettable song of this year's lineup. Passepartout was right there, I'm just saying, that would have at least given Portugal a fighting chance of making the final. This wouldn't have come close in my opinion. It's just so dreary, and that sounds really harsh, I know. Nothing wrong with Elisa, she was not the issue. The song was, it was just too dull. The performance of Festival de Canção, there she was, singing away, piano I believe, nothing about it that was interesting. And I honestly think the performance in Rotterdam would have been very similar. Really, really just sort of one tone throughout. Nothing that grabs your attention at all. And would the juries have liked it? Maybe a little bit. The public, maybe a little bit. But simply not enough to see Portugal go through. Another country that would have qualified, Poland. Yes, I think Poland would have gone back to the final after a few years away. This is Alicja Great young singer, absolutely fantastic vocals, studio cut and live version. This is Empires. I was rooting for Lucy myself by Albert Czerny in the little Polish national final that there was. But this song's fine. It's a ballad. It builds up nicely, and then you have that really powerful final note. This would have been very dramatic. I think they would have staged it relatively well. The emphasis would definitely have been on her vocals, because that is the strong point of this song. If anything, she deserves a better song. If she comes back next year, she deserves an even better song. This would have gone through. We know that Poland have a bit of a diaspora vote. Would this have been another Michał Szpak moment? I doubt it. But I think Poland should have felt fairly confident going into this year's contest that they would have qualified, because it's not that bad a song. Simple as that. Nice ballad. Really good singer. Another country that would have qualified, ooh, let me know your thoughts on this one. Armenia. I think Armenia would have gone through. I would not have said that before the revamp. Absolutely not. The revamp came along, it turned into more of a pop rock type song almost, R&B elements as well, of course, and everybody started loving it. And I think a few people went a bit overboard. I mean, it's still not that amazing a song in my opinion, but the revamp definitely helped its cause and gave Armenia a much better chance of going through this semi-final, where at first it looked very unlikely indeed. Athena Manoukian, big star in her homeland. This is Chains on You. Some people would say this is a trashy song, lyrically, musically, whatever. For me, it's really not that bad. I can listen to it now. Before the revamp, I was really not keen on it at all. Barely listened to 30 seconds of it at any one time. But now I can listen to the whole thing and appreciate it more. That's great. I do think this would have gone through. The public support was growing for this song. The juries would have found it cheap, I think. I don't think they would have really found anything about this that was remarkable. But the public may well have helped Athena get over the line, if you see what I mean. It might have been a close run thing, and had this made the final, would it have done very well in the final? I don't know. I think the staging would have been very interesting and would have given this song a whole new dynamism. What's the word I'm looking for here? No, what am I talking about? It would have just given it a whole new flavour. Why don't I just stick to the easier word to say? It would have given this song a whole new dimension, a new element, whereas before it just came across as quite messy. Now, you know, heading into Eurovision, had it been going ahead, I think we would have expected something a little bit more slick, a little bit more polished, and certainly something more engaging. I use that word a lot, I know, but it's true. We're down to the last few. Serbia would have qualified. Some people would say that this song is trashy as well, but this would have gone through with ease. Hurricane, big group in their homeland. Sanja Vucic, of course, part of this trio of girls. She represented Serbia in 2016 with Goodbye Shelter, very underrated on the night in my opinion. And also Knez, Montenegro 2015, his daughter is part of this group as well. This is such a big blast of pop, and something very refreshing from Serbia, because I get the feeling that they often tend to plump for ballads. They did last year. But this would have been a very striking, vibrant performance, full of sass. Quite a sexy performance, I imagine it would have been as well. Certainly the points would have poured in for this one. And this would have been another example, like Armenia, of a song that I think would have done considerably better in the public vote than the jury vote. The juries might have really loathed this, because it would have reeked of cheapness, for want of a better term, potentially. The public, on the other hand, would have really gravitated towards it, I'm sure. We're down to the last three. A country that wouldn't have qualified, Georgia. I really don't think so. I think this would have been a little bit too aggressive for the juries, maybe the public as well. We saw it last year with Otto Demsadze. That was a little bit similar to this in many ways. You know, another sort of aggressive, ominous sort of tune, and that song didn't make the cut at all. Didn't really come close, I think it's fair to say. This is another slightly rocky entry, Take Me As I Am by Tornike Kipiani. He's a good singer, really going for it, and, you know, quite a gravelly voice, I suppose, really able to hit those quite harsh notes, for want of a better term. But I've never been a big fan of this one, I'll be honest. I like rock music. I don't mind this style of music or this style of singing, but for me, I just can't connect with it at all, and I don't think many other people would have done as well. If it had qualified, great, because Georgia haven't appeared in a Eurovision Grand Final for years now. They've sort of lost their way a little bit. But this song, I think it would have been too divisive. Hence, no final, in my opinion. We're down to the last two, Albania and Latvia. Which one do you think would have qualified out of those two? For me, I've gone with Albania, and the reason I've picked Albania is because of how the statistics and the spreadsheets I've got in front of me panned out, but also because I think the Albanian song is better. I think it would have been a better performance. I think that Arlelena Arr is a better vocalist. Maybe. I think she would have smashed it live, and Albania has a habit. I say that. Last year, Albania crept through when I didn't expect them to. Didn't do terribly well in the final, admittedly. But I think and in 2015 as well, another great example there. But I think Albania would have gone through this year by a relatively small margin, and then probably would have finished in the bottom 10 in the final, in all honesty. This is a fine ballad. I like the revamped version considerably more than the original. It doesn't really bother me that it's in English. Arlelena, another great, promising young female musician who can really belt it out. This is Fall from the Sky. And yeah, it would have been a very simplistic performance, emphasis on the vocals. I think it would have gone through. I think the support would have been there, especially more so in the public half of the votes, which means no final for Latvia. I think this would have been chaotic, I really do. Remember a couple of years ago with Triana Park and Line? People really loved that song, but the staging was just a mess, in my opinion, and Latvia ended up last in that first semi-final in Kiev. I'm not saying that Samantha Tina with Still Breathing would have finished last. I certainly don't think it would have come close to finishing last at all, because there's quite a lot of fan support for this. But I think the staging would have just been a mess again. I really do. Samantha would have given it her all. She can really sing. I'm glad that she finally had the opportunity to go to Eurovision, and I think it would be wise for the Latvian broadcaster to just internally select her next year. You know, give her the chance at least to go to Eurovision at some point. But this song, it's loud, it's in your face, it's quite brash. The music video is very interesting. There's this whole thing with cake. But yeah, I think out of Armenia and Latvia, you know, let's just compare those two for a moment. I think Eurovision fans would have gravitated more towards Armenia, because that song feels a bit more current, and I don't think it would have been as messy, the staging, maybe. Whereas I think Still Breathing, certainly I couldn't see the juries really loving this at all. The public, yes, a little bit, but it would have been very, very close between Latvia and several other countries. As I've got it here in front of me, I think maybe only a handful of points separating 3 or 4 countries here, but I think Latvia would have missed out. Simple as that. I mean, would Latvia have qualified ahead of Albania? Possibly, we'll never know. Would Latvia have gone through instead of Austria? Possibly, we'll never know. Would Latvia have gone through ahead of Poland? No. I think Poland would have gone through ahead of Latvia every day of the week, in all honesty. Anyway, I'm really, really starting to ramble now. My word, I do apologise. I didn't want this to happen, but that's it. My prediction for what would have happened in semi-final 2 of the 2020 Eurovision Song Contest, which is of course not happening. In terms of the exact order of these songs, I'll be saving that for another video. Suffice to say though, that at this moment in time, my favourite is Switzerland, and I think my second favourite is Denmark, and my third favourite is Serbia, and my least favourite is, I think it's Georgia actually. What a shame. But anyway, there it is. I'll be back at some point soon with another Eurovision 2020 related video, possibly where I'll be talking about my grand final, you know, what may have actually happened in Rotterdam, and who would have won, and all of that business, taking into consideration all of these different elements. Anyway, that really is it now. Let me know what you think. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? It's just a bit of fun. I wouldn't take it super seriously. If anything, my prediction will probably change in the next couple of days, which will mess things up a little bit, but there we are. Yeah, let me know what you think, and feel free to share this video with other people if you're interested. Whatever you like. Oh, man, I've got to stop rambling. Yeah, absolutely atrocious. Until next time, I really do appreciate anybody watching this. That's it! My semi-final 1 prediction went up yesterday, and that's my semi-final 2 prediction for Eurovision 2020. Until next time, stay safe, and bye for now.